This is my analysis of the presidential debate between Clinton and Trump. The first point is this is not really a debate. Why? Because the questioners don't pick the questions, and instead the moderator is the one that decides what to ask. Also, the moderator does not require anybody to answer a question unless it's Trump. Obviously, in this case, Lester Holt had a bias. And here are two examples. First of all, he intervenes in the discussion, arguing that stop and frisk was declared unconstitutional. And that's an argument. He's putting forth an argument to counter what Trump said, that he was in favor of stop and frisk. Trump made the argument that they declared it unconstitutional, but they didn't appeal the decision, and that's why they lost. He thought they could win. But Lester Holt should not be involved in this issue and making an argument on one side of the coin. And you see this in the questions that he picked to ask. And for example, he asked and had a long discussion about the birther issue. But Trump had already said that he had agreed that Obama was a U.S. citizen. And Lester tried to pin on Trump the interview that he did with Howard Stern, which was done way before Trump was focusing on the issue of whether he was in favor of Iraq or not. And Lester Holt tried to pin on Trump the idea that Hillary Clinton is pushing, which is that he was in favor of the war in Iraq. Based on that interview with Howard Stern, which he really didn't give a definitive answer on what his position was, and it's an informal interview which he hasn't even really considered the issue. You can see it. Subsequently, he made clear statements that he was against the war, but Hillary Clinton was the one who was in favor of the war. She was a senator. She was paying attention to the issue. She focused. She got all the intel. She got all the information. And then she made the wrong decision. Now that whole thing just demonstrates Lester Holt's bias. On the issue of the war in Iraq, I think Trump did a pretty good job of pinning on Secretary Clinton the fact that ISIS would not have been created if it hadn't been for her mistake and Obama's mistake. Two, he made. First, going in there and starting the war, and secondly, leaving a vacuum of power. Trump made the point in the debate that the United States should not be the policeman of the world. That's a very important political issue. Now, if we had had third-party candidates, like we should have, libertarians and Greens, we would have had this issue discussed thoroughly. And there's two issues that weren't discussed thoroughly. Legalizing drugs, nobody talked about it. And the other issue, what was it? I'm trying to remember. There was another issue that, free trade. Both candidates were on the same side. They're both protectionists. So free trade never got a hearing. What is the argument in favor of free trade? We didn't hear. So let's see how interesting this situation is with regards to foreign policy. The parties have switched sides. Now the Democrats are the hawks and the Republicans are the doves. This is a big development and a very interesting one. And Trump was able to put forth at least a pretty good argument of why he was against it and what were the consequences. And he specifically mentioned a hawk who he was arguing with, Hannity, before the war, and nobody wants to pay attention to the evidence. They want to go along with this Hillary lie, which is that he was in favor of the war also. even though he was just a citizen and this was an informal interview he did with Howard Stern. So I think that that's an important question that the parties have switched. Now, let's go into the other issues. Regarding spending, somebody should tell Hillary Clinton that government spending does not create jobs. She thinks that government spending will create jobs, and this is absolutely false. So this is the basic tenet in her economic philosophy. It's Keynesianism, and it's nonsense. Government spending does not create jobs. Now, Trump suffers from that to some degree as well, but not as much as Hillary. And her solution when it comes to spending and the government intervening in the economy is she wants to the government to intervene more. She says that the government should require equal pay for equal work. In other words, she wants the government to regulate salaries, to get involved in what people are paid. Profit sharing, she said she was in favor of. And she wants to tax the rich more. She wants more redistribution of wealth, more intervention in the economy, and more redistribution of wealth. And Trump pointed out that would just stymie growth and reduce prosperity, and he's on the right side of that issue. The point is that all this regulation, which he's against and she's in favor, would actually hamstring the economy and make it impossible to deal with increasing prosperity and growth. And he made that point in the debate, I think, pretty well. He also said that he was against all that regulation, that she's going to unleash the EPA if she gets elected, and that he was in favor of people being able to create all sorts of energy creation, as opposed to her, which she wants to just clamp down and create only green jobs. She thinks that that's going to be great and be enough energy for us to be able to have a prosperous economy. So one of the things I wanted to mention was the implied principle that is directing both of these candidates, because unfortunately these candidates do not identify the principle that is ruling their thinking, the basic fundamental principle. And in Trump's case, it's self-interest, America first, and that is the proper position. Unfortunately, he's mistaken on some occasions on what will be in the best interest of the United States, but he's very clear about the goal. Hillary Clinton is in favor of self-sacrifice, in sacrificing us to other interests, in having a diffused responsibility. So the individual is not responsible. She doesn't believe in self-reliance and self-responsibility. She believes in community responsibility, which means nobody's responsible, which means that people will not act responsively. This is a disaster as far as the implied principle that's running their thinking without them even expressing it explicitly. Another point that I think is worth mentioning is the difference in background. Trump is a businessman, and that is paying off dividends every time he considers a political issue because he considers cost. Every businessman knows they have to consider cost. If you don't consider cost, you go bankrupt. And so Hillary Clinton doesn't consider cost. Why? It's other people's money, and she could care less. And this is what she believes in: redistribution of wealth, taking money from some citizens in order to provide free goods and services for others who will vote for her. That's the Democratic game: tax and spend. And that's what's going on in this debate. And you could see it in many instances. She argued exactly that. So let's see some of the specific questions or specific things that she said. I already mentioned, as far as the economy, equal pay for equal work, profit sharing, rich corporations pay their fair share. This is standard redistribution of wealth, government intervention policies. When Trump was asked the first question, he really didn't have a really good answer. Fortunately for him, they were able to ask him about other things, and throughout the debate, he was able to make some good points. But his answer about how to achieve prosperity, he just only focused on trade, better trade deals. This is, very unprepared. He's not like a polished politician who's got their talking points in order, just like Clinton had. Now, what did he say specifically? He said, don't let them leave, but some good points. Let them bring back money. And in other words, give them a tax break so they'll bring back their money that's overseas. Don't have a tax rate here in the United States that makes them leave, the so-called inversions. So what is Clinton's theory on taxes? Well, increase the taxes and create government jobs. She wants to have the government pick and choose which of the corporations should be supported, which not. She likes solar panels. That worked really well with Solyndra. Anyway, I think Trump made a very good point when he said that he would release his tax returns. You see, almost all of these questions were directed at perceived Trump's weakness. So one of the weaknesses is he hasn't shown his tax returns. So what did he say? He said he would do it against the advice of his lawyers. And it doesn't matter, cough if you like. He would do it against the advice of his lawyers if Hillary released her 33,000 deleted emails. Anyway, I thought that was a pretty good gambit. And what happened? Did he press her on it? Did Lester Holt press her on whether she would release the emails? No. And no. Nobody did anything. That's what happened. Here, have some water. Anyway, the camera woman is having some trouble with her bad cold. It doesn't matter. On race, Clinton was pandering about race. And as usual, the Democrats buy into the idea that the justice system is biased, that racism is the reason why so many black people are arrested, that there's total discrimination about